Oh, now you have the video.
Yeah.
You could watch it as well with Michelle. You don't have to watch it with me. Okay, well, we do it in a classic lecture format, so actually I can probably switch that off, to be honest. So it's a little bit the pity that this is not working. I will look a job after this session, but you will see I have a feeling that David Bini may struggle with the same problem. I don't. Maybe IT is quick, and then I should have really done it up front, but okay. Here we are. So mergers and acquisition is today's session, and I basically start with the introduction, new joint ventures or venture ideas, and then we go a little bit into the history, look at motivation, on particular 2 case studies. Yeah? Both controversial, and controversial merger and acquisitions always involve German companies for some reason. But it's more recent one. So one merger is from 2010, the other one from 2012. So it should be fun to look at it. Yeah. Now, mergers and acquisition combine divergent cultures. We had that already with strategic orientations and practices into new configuration, and often form part of the strategic options that are expected to transform company performance. Yeah. So it's very much about creating kind of this emphasis of performing maybe in a new market or performing better. Yeah. This transition can cause uncertainty and conflict with detracts management's attention from the organization's productivity activities. Now, a big thing when you bring a company like this together, before you have found a way to organize and you are working on performance indicators, productivity maybe, but when you come to the merger or an acquisition, you form as well kind of a new organization. So it's first of all getting the organizational structure right, if you want, aligning the right routines, that collaboration is actually functional. And then you're going into performance optimization and productivity. Now, if you run this in parallel, it can be very destructive, in other words. Yeah. So what are the strategic steps according to literature to basically avoid this destruction? Well, many organizations are altering their business models, and strategies are entering or leaving industries to find better ways to use their resources. Here again, we had, you remember in the second session where we looked at the big model, we had resources that were tangible, and then we have as well the intangible. What was again the difference? Do you remember? That was a resource model at the beginning. But what is tangible? Do we have tangible resources here in the room? Yes. The room, the table, the chair, the laptop. That is a nice resource, yeah, the laptop. Actually, the chairs as well nice, but okay. Then we have intangible ones. What are the intangible ones?
Knowledge.
Yeah, knowledge. Yeah, you being trained for a long time to be a super project manager. Yeah, so you can actually adapt without the problem to different environments, kindergarten for you. Yeah, but it's very difficult to quantify because there's just you and there's so much. Yeah. So and then there are capabilities. So this is as well implicit knowledge, how you actually operate with stuff. Yeah, you do know how to sit on the chair. If you like a Family Guy, he actually illustrates how bad it would be if implicit knowledge like this goes lost. He tries to sit down and he has forgotten how to do it. So if you want to Google that, it looks very funny. Yeah, but it's kind of implicit. Yeah, so you know how to interact with the tangible elements around you to create something. Yeah? So this is very powerful. And often in companies we look at this currently still under the notion of creating value. Yeah. Okay, so there are many ways in which you can do like a merger or acquisition. So there's internal new venturings. What could that be? Internal new venturings.
Trying new things out.
Yeah.
Products,
So we are
ranges,
now.
different markets.
Okay, you think. Let's keep it simple. In a family, what is an internal new venture? Anything goes here. There's no wrong answer, I think.
Something out of not usually in the norm of your family day to day. operations.
Yeah.
Mm.
Your
New
normal
child
idea
in
is
the
you go
family?
to work. Yeah, could be. Yeah. So a parent's side deciding new child. Yeah. This is a here we actually have a new organizational element. Yeah, but it could be as well. You have a day-to-day routine. You come home, you eat, you sleep. Yeah, and then you decide like, hey, how about we eat and play football and then sleep. Yeah? So this would be as well like a refinement. Yeah? So it's basically a new activity. Then we have a new internal joint venture. This would come out of the company. Joint venture, this was actually the child potentially. Yeah? So in your company, you try to come together and create a new company or a new activity. Yeah?
Is there a big difference between joint venture and merger? Can sometimes called.
So those are forms of merger and acquisition, if you want. Yeah. Does that make sense? We will break that down in a second. Yeah. Now I should actually. You're right. So is there a difference? We should look at it on a collaborative endeavor. Yeah. This is ambiguous because the legal terms basically make a difference between a joint venture, which is a new company set up and you leave the originals, internal new ventures, maybe can be actually both. You can start a new group that has their own company setting, but resources are shared. Yeah, and then if you come to merger and acquisitions, it's normally an internalization. So before you were 2 units, but now you think like, hey, why don't we combine it? I like you so much, we become one. Yeah? This is simplified what we are trying to do. Yeah. So yeah, did you know a few? Okay, let's think of examples. Now away from the family into the business world, business and like stuff that we do around us, organizational wise. So acquisitions. Has anybody heard of one recently? What is an acquisition?
Business
Well,
takes
what-
over another business.
Takes over.
In both sets, it takes
Yeah.
it on board.
Yeah. So was there one recently? What about 2008, 2009? Were there acquisitions?
VW didn't Skoda and cars basically we talked about, didn't we?
Yeah.
VW, Skoda and that sort of thing.
So who took whom over there?
VW took Skoda off, did they? I don't know.
I know it was actually a takeover. That was like a merger, wasn't it? Rather than a
Was it
takeover.
major, was it? Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know much about cars. to be
Okay, so a famous acquisition, Royal Bank of Scotland was taken over by whom? Acquired?
Was it-
By the government. Yes. It's slightly technical. We have actually a different term for that, but this would have been an acquisition. Acquisition was as well. VW actually acquired Porsche. If you stay in the car industry, it was on share majority, and then they were quite aggressive and wanted to bully them out. But at the same time, with the money that VW transferred to the shareholders of Porsche, the managing director started buying VW shares and basically bid it back and had then 40% ownership of VW afterwards. It was extremely political.
But in that case, I think from my memory, Porsche and VW stroke Audi had already had, I won't say merger, but they'd already had a lot of collaboration previously in the past.
They had partnership agreements
Yeah.
on a lot, like particular supply parts, supply chains, as well trade agreements. So there was already a lot of collaboration going on. You're quite right. Yeah. Okay. Other famous acquisitions that you came across? Recently?
Did somebody acquired Instagram, didn't they? Was it Facebook acquired
Yeah.
Instagram?
Yeah.
WhatsApp.
WhatsApp as well. I think they did both, didn't they?
Yeah,
Wait a minute. Who got whom? Microsoft got WhatsApp. No. Facebook. Yeah.
Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. I think they got that.
Yes.
Yeah, if you
I mean,
put
the
it on
reason-
Instagram, it goes immediately on Facebook, doesn't it?
Yeah. And Microsoft got as well Skype. That is a recent. Yeah. That was as well an acquisition. So basically bought the guys out. Yeah. Okay, mergers. Mergers? Anybody? Mergers? Oh, I like it. Yeah. So you could just Google if you want. recent mergers. So mergers is like a family, yeah? You meet somebody, hey, you're quite attractive. Why don't we start one unit? Family, yeah?
Orange and T-Mobile, was it? The big company.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, just,
Yeah, they've
I think
rebranded
BT
them.
I think BT are buying it.
Yeah, they're well
So
willing to
that's-
buy what
That's a merger going on, an acquisition.
Yeah.
In PC World and Currys and Dixon's are all the same now, I think, as well. I think they're all under the umbrella with Currys, aren't they?
Okay, I didn't know that. That is interesting. Yeah. But okay, this is I'm not quite sure, but it sounds as well that it's probably merger or acquisition. Yeah.
Could be a bit of both.
Yeah. Yeah, but BT, you're right. They are actually buying on shareholder majority and made an aggressive bid for the management. Yeah. So it's a takeover, acquisition. Yeah.
Well, supermarkets as well. I'm trying to think because that's a big industry. The co-op took over Safeways.
Morrison's.
Morrison's.
Yeah, Safeways.
Did they?
was
Morrison's
someone
took
else.
over Safeways and the co-op took
I was
over.
there at the time.
Oh yeah. I'm just thinking of my local shops really. Fine Fair were the co-op. But yeah, that's happened a lot recently. The smaller chains have been taken over by the bigger chains in the supermarket world. So fairly recently. And Sainsbury's took over quite a lot of cooperative stores as well, so there must be something going on between Sainsbury's and the co-op as well.
Okay, so local markets maybe, yeah.
Mm.
So this is actually kind of already a hybrid, yeah. Often this is not so much a merger, but it's more trading off shops where you have a demography that doesn't really fit your profile, where you're kind of
That's
challenged
exactly
on your
what they did at
product.
Sainsbury's,
Yeah. This is why you have now maybe a waitress in Jasmine. When I lived there, they didn't have a waitress, so I must have pulled it down. We just had a Tesco, yeah, and waitress wasn't worthwhile yet. But when I left, it was worthwhile suddenly. Yeah, so a huge influence from me there, clearly. Yeah, that's why my shopping habits. Yeah, no, I'm just joking. But, yeah, okay. Joint ventures. Anybody?
Well, I've worked on a joint venture partnership, which was to build the Laser Swing Hospital way back in the 90s.
Yeah, and
that was between the
joint
contractor, which was Taylor Woodrow, M&E, which was the co-op, which no longer exist, and what was it? On the architectural practice as well. We were part of the joint venture partnership.
Wow.
Which
okay.
was it Myra Lickin? It wasn't Myra Lickin. That was a Scottish. Can't remember now. Sorry.
Okay, but
A long time ago.
yeah. So and it was a separate company unit, yeah, that they kind of
it
built.
was just pulled together for that one contract.
Mm.
I mean, some of them have worked together before, but yeah.
A lot
Okay.
of the Ministry of Defence, you've got BA systems and
Yep.
that's all. I suppose joint ventures and partnerships and not mergers, but
Yeah, so this is often long-term partnerships, not so much a joint venture, but actually the European cluster for planes is a joint venture. So Cassidian is the name in Europe for the recent planes that fly around for defense reasons. And yeah, okay. And then we had the internal new ventures. Has anybody heard of that? Products? Think maybe of Apple or Google. Do they have things like that? They have actually a lot of that. Do you know any?
So would it be like the sort of combination between an iPhone having an iPod?
Yeah, spot on. Yeah. Oh no, not even combined. Yeah. So the internal new ventures for Apple would be, for example, the iPhone.
Oh.
Yeah. So that they basically branch out from their platform to a new venture, but it's internally motivated. Although they did actually go in a joint venture for that, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but they started it first up and then kind of brought competencies in.
I suppose
Similar like Google and Samsung. Yeah.
sorry, even when they're bringing out a new model, technically that's really a new venture, isn't it? Because
Well, it
everything
depends.
changes.
So here it's a definition stage. So if you start a new group for it, you set up a new capacity and often even legal grounds that is separate from your other business, then you would consider it a new venture. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. You can do that as well on projects. Actually, this is why we often do projects financially, to not have the risk of the project like potentially affecting our home-based company, our mother organization. Is that the right term? This was German translation. So we associate it with a kind of base company. If you have a very big risky project, you may want to do it as a joint venture, or what you said, no, yours was a joint venture, or alternatively as a new internal venture, as a separate group with limited liability against the host company. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. Okay. Now, with this, internal new ventures, companies enter new industries by using internal new venturing to transfer or leverage their existing competencies to create a set of value chain activities necessary to compete effectively in this new industry. Hence iPhone, we had already a mobile market, and the iPhone came along, and suddenly it was all in one, iPod, Apple Store, you can watch even movies and listen to songs from iTunes. So it's all in one. Wonderful. That means that organizational structure, control, culture must be designed to encourage creativity and give new venture managers real autonomy to develop and campaign or champion new products. Now, this is, I should add, this is American and English literature. In Germany and France, you would have more a designer emphasis. So you would say the new venture should be driven by the product design and the engineering. Those are different perspectives. So one is accountable to shareholder value, so it's a profit driver upfront. Other organization forms in design, you're creating kind of a new market for yourself, where there's no evaluation yet. If you do it well, you can create a big market. So it's actually quite scary if you interview, for example, Bill Gates. He said, like, everybody should have a computer and communicate with his computer. And this was in his interview, I think, 1981. I was just very young at that stage. So it's terrifying that he envisions it. It took him over 30 years to make us do this all. So it's quite an ambiguous view. But there was no market for it yet. So that is a possibility too. And then, of course, monetary value is maybe the underlying, but you have a different key driver. It's maybe more about the design. Then we have the joint ventures used by large companies, not necessarily only, but to maintain their momentum and grow their profits, new markets and industries. So joint ventures are actually the one that you described doesn't have to be big companies. And in Germany and German-speaking area, as well in Japan, this is actually quite common, that SMEs come together to have the momentum to bid for a project as well in a joint venture, taking on the individual risks that they are competent in. And then you have a strong bid. The client is confident. Actually, all the key players are in there. They all can account for it. So you too, as a project manager, can go for something like that. If you feel like, okay, there's a new technology, get a university on board to work with you.
Is that like the ALGA agreement?
ALGA agreement was. Where did you come across that? This was in the
module last year, because the two Austrian lads that were in my group, obviously they were familiar with it because I worked in Australia. So that's
it's a very powerful thing, and as well the Tesla. The electric car was designed like that. It was a team from different companies that kind of came together, mostly small to medium enterprises, but actually they had a lot of finance power behind them with PayPal and government, to be fair. But again, they kind of did a similar thing. It doesn't have to be just big companies.
I think the good thing about joint venture partnerships is that they're temporary for the duration of the contract, and if the companies get on well together, it can be something that can be taken further. And if they don't, it's finished and it's done with, and it's.
You said that time. Be very careful. Often there are liabilities, so you're often promising to deliver the product, or repay resources. So you are. Time is often something that is as well written into it as an orientation, but this is normally the first thing that gives. Does that make sense? In a joint venture.
When you say the contracts must have to be rock solid between joint ventures when you're in that sort of situation.
It's actually the opposite. The better one are often quite loose and based on responsibility, and accountability of the different team members. But this depends again on site. The big joint ventures between, for example, Nissan and Renault is massive contracts, you know, like explicit capacity agreements. So they play a very hard game there.
I think you tend to go to partnership with people that you've worked with previously, and you have a good working relationship, and you understand each other's.
Yeah, this can be one motivation.
Cultures, I guess,
Yeah, can be one motivation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Often occurs when two companies agree to pool some combination of their resources, capabilities, and establish new business unit to develop a new product and a business model that will allow it to bring the new product to market successfully. Hence, the time emphasis is often in it, but often is where the first thing that goes. Through collaboration, by sharing their technology, marketing skills to develop an improved product, for example, they will be able to create more value, profit in new industry than if they decide to go it alone. Now, this is again the technology and collaboration, but with it you have, of course, as well kind of competencies inside, often access to markets. We discussed that already a little bit in previous sessions, that this is often a big motivation for a joint venture. Branding power as well, things like that. Now, political power as well. So you may have loved it in a certain area before. You're a big player. You are in the networks. Can be as well motivation. Yeah. Then we have the mergers and acquisition. Just to make the hard distinguishing definition. Acquisition occurs when one company uses its capital resources, such as stock, debt, or cash, to purchase another company. The target company ceases to exist. Now, this is interesting. How can you use your debt to buy another company? Countries as well, but company. If you have a lot of debt, how can you use that? Okay, this is puzzling, yeah? Okay, you may want to read up on that. That is exciting stuff, yeah? You know that you can sell. Okay, maybe I shouldn't emphasize. So in a company, if you have like invested in something, and you have a product, we build what shall we build? A new mouse, for computers, and we have now developed it, but we have done it on debts or credits, yeah. Then we can say, okay, this will repay. Our business plan says it repays over 5 years. In the worst case, yeah. In the best case, we may have it back in 3 years. Now you can sell this credit on, yeah. You say like, hey, my friend, I sell it to you not at 100%. I'm not a cruel person. I give it to you for 98, yeah. Or you wait a little bit. 3 months. Everybody wants our mouse. It looks like it's repaying in half a year. It makes already profits at probably 150%. Then you may sell your credit more expensive than what you took in. Does it make sense? People are generally looking concerned with that idea. Yeah, but that is effectively what you do in big companies. You too can do that in your projects. Yeah, I recommend financial advisors, to package it. But it's common practice, especially in big companies. Yeah. So that is actually how the Porsche guys bought a huge chunk from VW. Although they, like, just to give you an idea, VW Group, 1 million employees, like turnover in the trillions. It's like a bank. Actually, they are as well a bank. Yeah, Porsche, somewhere higher kind of millions, nearly billion. But how could they have 40% of the shares of VW? That is what everybody asked afterwards. And they did exactly that. They sold their whole supply chain value of the new prototypes that is done on credit, and sold it as options. Now everybody trusts in Porsche. Everybody wants a Porsche. Yeah? So everybody was like, yeah, I have that. I pay you 110% for this because I know you make a lot of profit, and everybody wants to drive Porsche. Yeah, and this is basically the game they played. And then they could use all that money and buy VW. Yeah? So that is very hostile. That is not how you are friends at the Christmas dinner anymore. Yeah? This is when it's slightly quite intense. People generally take things like that personally. And I'll tell you in a second about it.
Does it also imply that the confidence in their product or in the marketplace, that they're prepared to put themselves out there at risk, really, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, risk is just a mathematical equation of like, markets collapsing, dangers, uncertainties. And if you look at that,
I meant the person that they're selling their debt to is taking a risk.
Yeah.
They
So
must have so much confidence in the actual
This is
project.
spot on, yeah. So you could hold a credit, but you're deferring your income.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know that. Okay, we have now a brilliant design, and we have like kind of banked this in our business plan already at the worst case. Nobody wants Porsche anymore. People have recognized there's a new Tesla electric car, and it's as well really nice. Okay, it falls apart if you drive too bad terrain, but that just falls apart after 2 years. So you can buy a new one or something like that. Yeah? And then now they do a business plan basically for the worst case Porsche. So and that was then maybe writing off the credit in 5 years, and after 5 years you make direct profits. Yeah? And you are speculating now. If you're buying this credit, you are basically sitting in there and say like, I think you may buy a Porsche as well. Yeah, then just to be on the safe side. Yeah, starting already the momentum, and then once it starts repaying, so then you make direct profits. You can pull it out. But the risk is with you. If you are buying this credit.
But just someone being able from Porsche, for example, in Porsches, someone being good at being able to sell that is probably 50% of the battle. You've got a good potentially a good business plan. It may not work, but if you've got someone that's good at selling that to other people, then
so people like me, I buy the credit from Porsche, then I run to shall I take the real name, Stanley & Poor in America, and say like, hey, look, this is Porsche credit, and they're like, whoa, this is AAA. And then I'd go with AAA, this is worth 130%, who wants to buy it? And then you have like banks buying it. And then I have made 30% profit. But I had just £100, so now I have £130 afterwards. But still, I made my margin. That doesn't make... Okay, that was extremely simplified, but this is basically the idea behind it, Okay, so this was acquisition, buying, and you can do that as well on value basis. You can do it as well on hard equipment. So in projects we have that sometimes, that companies actually buy the machines themselves because they see this is a huge business too. So actually here in the UK we saw that they actually bought a lot of the plant operation because this made a lot of money individually too. So sometimes it's things like that. Merger is an agreement between two equals, doesn't have to be actually, but to pool their operations and create a new entity, used to smooth the negative connotations associated with being bought out. Now, but mergers can have as well toxic tendencies if one is too strong and is quite hostile. But that can be a softer approach. Now, within the mergers, and this is as well what we have, of course, in our wonderful simulation, there is a horizontal integration. Here you often have a single industry strategy. So this is as well what you have in your simulation. So this is a process of acquiring or merging with an industry competitor to achieve the competitive advantages that arise from large size and scope of operations in one business or industry. So sometimes this is modularization. So different industry. So simplified, you can either dominate. You just give them you give one product to the market, and if everybody needs it, then it's wonderful because you are kind of in the agenda setting type, and you have here something. Now, if you want to grow your market, it helps to diversify as well. So those are normally the dominant decisions that you can make. So you would merge with a company to have like more options that customers can take from you, and then you can actually offer it to the whole market. So you have the quantity behind it to make it worthwhile. Now then we have as well vertical integration. So here you have new industry strategy, also used to strengthen a company's business model or to improve their competitive position. However, this is done through entering new industries to support the business model of its core industry. I mean, this is probably if you think of Virgin, they are quite aggressive in this. Did you know Virgin Galaxy, and Virgin Mobile, Virgin Bank? Is anybody with Virgin Bank? Okay, nobody. Virgin Galaxy is upcoming, so this is unlikely. Anybody flown with? Has anybody had a flight with Virgin?
Trains.
Virgin trains, yeah, exactly. So you get the idea. Yeah, they have to diversified and try to step into new venture markets as opportunities arose. Yeah? So there's a certain dynamic behind it. Now, if you why did actually people do mergers and acquisitions? It's quite interesting to look at the past, and I partially disagree with the literature on that, because it's a lot more varied than what I present here as a past, but it tended to do primarily with financial transactions aimed at gaining control or undervalued assets could be resold or left to stand alone in independent entities. Yeah, and here you really had this idea that it was about financial optimization, but often you had as well kind of hybrids trying to so what are the hybrids? In the 60s and 70s, we saw, for example, bigger companies trying to collaborate to bring a similar standard of products, like aimed at local demand, and that was as well already capacity oriented, not just financial cost cutting exercise. But again, you could argue that was as well in the main route. The target was often a dissimilar industry. So actually, in the example that we will have in a second with pharmacy and with pharmacy, you will see that is actually the case. Or a business line distinctly separate from the acquirer's main business, so where you could support. Yeah. So for engines, for example, the famous cars like BMW, the engines came actually from the aerospace motors. Yeah? And then they saw an opportunity. Nobody needed any kind of defense planes anymore. Yeah? So the time was kind of over. So they said, like, what do we do with all our engine knowledge? How about we give everybody a car? Yeah? It was a good idea too. Yeah? Also, VW was a little bit more successful in that. Yeah? Then there's price premiums, were less common, and integration was not a primary value driver. So there was as well a little bit hostility between different companies, which is interesting, and that was certainly true and is still true, I think. If you think you work for a company and somebody acquires you, there's probably a little bit of sour taste. Yeah? So as a result as well, there was more room for mistakes, or there was no intent to merge the cultures. Yeah, the dominant culture. Oh, did you see the video last week? Yeah. So the new moving in company may make noise. Do you remember, like the old knights running down the hill with like their metal? So I mean, as a metaphor, it works. Yeah. Yeah. So it's yeah, but I mean, as a metaphor, it's very powerful actually. Then you had as well, main risk was taking enough cost out of the business to ensure sufficient cash flow for debt service. So of course you took as well over kind of the costings of the project, and often there was a temptation to kind of strip out repetition of services. Yeah? So this would be just more work for the service units that you may have in the past. Now this of course often backfired, so there was as well potential to do a lot wrong. Yeah. And that is something where we come in a second to, with particular culture. That was a big thing. Now more presently, when you look at M&As, there are more strategic and operational in nature decisions. So here you have buying an installed customer base, as well as new and better distributed channels, supply chains, customer interfaces for products, yeah, and as well geographical markets very often. Buying organization competencies and talent, and gaining control over competitors' products and services is another one. And of course as well consolidating business units or industries to increase revenue and share price. Yeah, especially material trading, yeah, there's a lot of that going on. So if there's a boom in a particular metal, then you see often that the logistics companies that kind of bring you the materials for manufacturing suddenly buy mines, yeah, because they find it actually quite profitable to have the mine. Yeah, that's basically the resources are booked out, So you can actually deplete the mine and it will be all sold already. And then they are in for that. But as long as the mine has like spare capacities that are risky, you don't even know if it's valuable, if the prices are high enough to get it actually out of the ground, then you may let the mine do their independent business, because you don't want to have the risk in your company. So it's quite interesting how harsh the interface is on those markets. Now then we have as well globalization. This is a buzzword which is often overinflated, but there are short-term pressures for earnings of growth, and price premiums are very common, and particularly in a global setting, there's a lot of currency games going on as well. And this is on all accounts, so materials, liabilities, lands, you call it. There's a lot of speculation in this. Then as well, less margin for, this kind of brings you, of course, to a point where we have the pressure of less margin for error and achieving as well economic projections of the deal, or better, optimally. But often the projections are quite on the peak already. The requirements for an acquisition is adoption of common management and financial control systems, and as well, we leave it with financial control. Joining together of operations and establishment of bureaucratic mechanisms to share information and personnel. Now again, here more recently we see actually the opposite. So companies like Google, they do actually collaborate a lot. So you too can collaborate with Google and use information on a need-to-know basis. So it's a very soft approach. They will try to promote particular information packages to you, but they see as well how capable you are to deal actually with information exchange. And that is more modern actually, and more suitable as well for projects. You don't want to butter your project with bureaucracy from a new organization, being accountable against control mechanisms. Then there's as well a need to create a common culture, and that is really often the crux of this. With strategic mergers, you have one whose value depends not necessarily on the cash flows from the acquisition per se, but accumulates from the follow-on opportunities opened up by acquisitions. So you see that actually quite often that we have companies that have a technology interface that may already sell. So if you think of Samsung and Google, they collaborated, and there was a Google book, right? You didn't have any, you had basically everything cloud-based, so you needed internet. I was pretty fast. Did anybody use this? Google Nexus? No? Oh, this is hard. Okay. But anyway, it was supposed to be really fast and good, and but it didn't take off. So because Samsung learned a lot from Google, and then ran off and said like, hey, we do our own Samsung, and there they were. And they had actually a lot of new smart products, and the interfaces in Samsung have changed. You can see that. So it's quite a powerful one. So that didn't go that well, unfortunately, for the strategic lens of doing business together. Top 10 largest takeover worldwide include 2 pharmaceutical companies. Now this is basically the example from 2010. The biggest takeovers that were reviewed here in that case is over 10 years between 1998 to 2008, and the 2010 one is kind of the newest. Now here it was the first one that we actually look at is the mobile industry, and it's not the BT one, that we just discussed, but it was Vodafone. You may remember, Vodafone had a thing going with a German company called Mannesmann. Does anybody know this? Mannesmann? No. Well, I'll tell you in a second more about it. So Vodafone was founded in 1982. and was kind of UK's largest maker of military radio technology. So they had a well-rooted understanding of what was possible with radio transmission and mobiles, if you want. Yeah, branded from the demerger of Racal Electronics to become a Vodafone Group. In 1991, and then after a number of communication acquisitions, became branded in 1996 as Vodafone. Who had Vodafone? Was it good?
Yeah, at the time it was,
Yeah?
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, well, was one of the most best networks, right? It was even in Inverness, if you were like rowing out on your sailing boat for a little bit fishing, yeah, you still had network.
Yeah, that's right.
This was quite exceptional, actually. Now, the Vodafone acquired actually Mannesmann, but before Mannesmann is a German company founded in 1890, largely engineering and, oh, this is interesting, they wrote seamless steel tubes. No, fair enough, I guess. And they were in seamless steel. They had as well other roots, but okay. And then the 100 years later, 1990, they entered basically into the telecom business as well, largely in Germany. Yeah? And as it came, Vodafone were alliance partners with Mannesmann to help Mannesmann kind of into the German market, and to build it up. Mannesmann didn't have full capacity there, so Vodafone were one of the world's largest mobile phone companies, and Mannesmann were Germany's second largest fixed line telephony and internet company. Also, they were giving you lines into your flat, so you could plug your computer in or your normal phone, and this was it. They hadn't yet discovered how you can do it without the cable. So then they kind of went along and collaborated, so Mannesmann could do it too. But then Mannesmann was as well, hey, we want to go out as well in the world. We are just in Germany, this is not cool. Let's see what's out there. So Mannesmann purchased Orange, third largest network in the UK. It's very popular in South Africa, actually all over the world. Yeah, Orange was a global business. And Mannesmann was like, yeah, well, we stop a little bit the steel business and invest a little bit more in mobile. Let's go with Orange. Now, Orange, third largest network in the UK, and without warning or consent from their partner. So they didn't really speak to Vodafone, didn't think that would be an issue. So once Orange became property of Mannesmann, they were in direct competition, of course, with Vodafone for services on UK soil. And Vodafone was like, hey, what's going on? What are our alliance, our partners doing? Yeah? There was a certain shock, yeah? And then you had the retaliation. So after initial shock of Vodafone, they made an unsolicited bid aimed at Mannesmann shareholders. So it's a little bit what I just told you about with Porsche and VW, that's as well as sport. And Mannesmann, of course, rebuffed the offer with the response by the deputy chair of Mannesmann Supervisory Board as brutal behavior, predatory capitalism, which aims only at short-term profits for the shareholders. They said that the hostile takeover would damage the corporate culture. Now this can just happen in Germany, don't worry. But then, not at all, Mannesmann's leader saw the bid as a threat to the national interest of Germany, but as a set of economic decisions that are an intrinsic part of the business landscape. So even kind of the managers and leaders at Mannesmann were like, yeah, it's fair enough. Yeah, they just play the card game back. Yeah. Now then the offer, Mannesmann tried to resist the Vodafone takeover, but ultimately could not refuse the generous price that was paid. So Vodafone had a shareholder price. We are again at the debt price. Yeah. So here it's suddenly AA rated. Yeah. They had 100% for the credit, and the shareholders were like, hey, we give you 150 for your credit. I know, it's 5 years. I trust in you. Yeah. Very tempting. Yeah. You have 50 more already. Yeah? Right now, right here, you can invest as well in it and do what you want with the money. Yeah? So Mannesmann board tried to get Vodafone to agree to maintain the Mannesmann name after the completion of the deal. So they wanted as well Orange name away, Mannesmann on top. That's a cool name, right? Mannesmann. That's complicated. I don't know. Orange was easier, right? Never mind. Okay, so but it appeared that Vodafone would wouldn't do so. Eventually, they choose to go with Vodafone name, something that made good sense in this age of globalization, as maintaining multiple names would inhibit common marketing efforts. So brand name was a big thing to go as well global and kind of compete with other stakeholders. So there's still this dominance question often. Yeah. And any questions to this wonderful narrative? So you can see that there's a lot of interest in. We haven't even talked about the operational side, but you can see, you get a feel for the dynamics. Now we have to go a little bit more complicated. We go into the pharmaceutical industry. Now, I have wonderful pictures as well here with the faces, and they're always kind of gray, brown, white with a beard, so it's worthwhile looking up the slides afterwards. So 2009 saw 3 big pharmaceutical mergers. Rocher Holding AG. Does anybody know Rocher? Yeah. What are they famous for? Do you know?
More construction, but it could be.
Yeah, it's a big conglomerate, so this was kind of the point. Yeah, they did as well construction and food.
Oh.
So, but they stopped this now. Yeah, construction I think is the do, but food is now Nestle. They have bought the unit out. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, as well shareholder company, they bought Gentech. I don't know those guys. Then Pfizer Inc. buying Wise, and there the price was given. Here we had like a 68 billion deal, yeah. And then Merck buying Sharing Plug. Sharing is as well a Berlin company, yeah. Bought for 41.1 billion. So those were kind of the big 3 ones, and if you look at it, it was a change in strategy from the 90s, as the pace of new drug discovery has slowed amid a tougher regulatory scrutiny, and revenue has declined as patents expires. Yeah? So as soon, how long does a patent last? Do you know this? Normal patent?
Is it 10 years?
Yeah, it depends a little bit on the country, but in the UK and America, 15 years is a safe bet. Then they normally the longer ones can be 25, but then you have to go for reapplying for the patent. And if you have other people that are bidding quick or have like the time window and use it, then your patent is probably already used in other people's products.
My husband worked in the pharmaceutical industry previously, and in I think about 5 or 6 years he started off working for Boots the chemist, and then it changed to Knauf, and then Knol, sorry, and then it was taken over by BASF. So in like 5 or 6 years he went from like a UK based company to a global company.
At the moment, it's a very aggressive market, of pharmacy products. It's quite interesting. Yeah. The recession has only increased the urgency of adding new lines of business to offset the weak core drug business. So we have as well a huge shift there, yeah? And a need for diversification, such as medical devices to consumer health products. Here, newer companies that were really innovative were Johnson & Johnson. Do you know them? And any products that you recognize, Johnson & Johnson?
They do soaps.
Yeah.
Shampoo.
Yeah, soaps, oils, you name it. Exactly. Yeah.
Lotions.
Yeah. Yeah. Then I have as well the beautiful pictures. You can see as well that Sharing was then actually kind of went into joint venture with Bayer and kind of re-established their German name. So they are still very powerful in Germany. Yeah. In the Second World War, Sharing had a lot of problems, but that was for other reasons. Now, if you look at the agreement between the two equals, historically MSD and Sharing have a lot in common. Both are strong science-based companies, so they were as well partnering partly with universities, which units they then bought. so they internalized it. Both have a common mission and passion to improve health and well-being around the world, and both share a long-standing commitment to putting our customers first and being there for the people in time of need. Yeah? But what was going on behind the corporate scenes? Well, MSD and Sharing Q are now one company. We recently merged to create a stronger, more diverse, and more truly global company. This is not only benefits our company and our shareholders, but also benefits the millions of UK patients and customers who rely on our products and expect us to continue to deliver exceptional value. So the merger representative said. Yeah. Now we have as well the reverse merger that followed. A failing or failed publicly traded company that is listed on the stock exchange, or another mergers with a privately held company. Now there the privately held company takes over the public stock listing and manages the day-to-day operations of the new business. What was that? Good example for that? Did we have any? Who bought Northern Rock? Do you remember that? That was. Yeah? Did you know that? Yeah, it was Virgin Bank. So it was a private bank just catering for Virgin, and that was actually their step how they could go into the kind of wider field of banking. They didn't have a lot of licenses, so they couldn't have their own credit card. And with this, basically, they were in it, and they looked after it. They put their own assets as guarantee against the Northern Rock unit. Yeah. Now with Merck and Sharing, a Blue Reserve merger was as well there. It didn't last very long. So Merck's reverse merger strategy initially meant that ownership of Sharing Pew would not change hands, at least on paper. Anyway, yeah, and the newly combined company, Old Merck, was merged to become a subsidiary of Sharing Blue technically, yeah, with no change in Sharing Blue's CEO. Once the deal was done, SPS CEO stepped down and Merck CEO took over and quietly changed SPS name to Merck & Co., which is quite interesting. And Old Merck changed its name to Merck Sharp and Dome Corp, yeah, outside of US and Canada. Yeah. So this was an interesting move. Yeah. So they rebranded it and kind of had then two entities that kind of still represented the move. So this is a strategic game, if you want. Yeah. So why the reverse merger? Sharing Pew and JJ shared the rights to blockbuster artist treatment, Remicade, and a new arthritis therapy. Sorry, not artists. Yeah, arthritis therapy in late-stage development called golimumab. Does anybody know that? I don't know this either, but that's basically the term I got from Google. Yeah? Hope this is right. So Sharing Blue owned most of the drugs' international rights, while JJ owns their domestic US rights. Under change of control clauses in the company's partnership agreements, JJ has the opportunity to acquire the full rights to do the drugs if Sharing Pew gets taken over. Now that is of course interesting. Yeah? So if they would have done the takeover, they could have used this treatment themselves and basically had like a huge market to use it for. Does that make sense? Yeah. So Remicade.
Is that not an issue though in the pharmaceutical industry anyway? That if they get a product that fails, it gets passed in America, it comes here and it fails, and we get we'll have side effects and things like that. The main company, everybody hides under the umbrella of the main company, don't they? And it kind of goes as a black mark against them, and they have to spend a lot of money, I guess, in litigation and legals and all the rest of this.
That is when it goes wrong. You're quite right. Yeah? Particularly in big company, in a big company like this, and sometimes liabilities are not that clear. Yeah? And that is of course a shame. It should be clearly accountable.
I thought that's why most of them changed their names, to be fair, in the marketplace too.
Yeah, it's as well to get the licenses, of course. You know, they play their games. So Remicade generated in the end 2.1 billion in revenue, over 11.35% of sales for sharing Pew in a year. So this is a lot. You don't want to lose that license that J&J runs off with it and does it as well all over the world where they have the market. Yeah, you want that they acquire it, of course, from the home company. Now, next we had actually arbitration demand filed by Johnson & Johnson against Sharing Pew in May 2009, ruling that the agreement and plan of a merger between Merck & Co. Inc. and Sharing Pew Corporation constitutes a change of control that would permit the termination of the agreement. Yes, we can actually use it now, yeah, and make our profit. We have another cash cow, yeah. And then April the 15th, 2011, MSD and JJ reached an agreement to amend the distribution rights of Remicade and Siponi, the golimumab. Okay, I should have really listened more carefully on Google to it. To relinquish executive marketing rights for Remicade and Siponi to JJ. Pharmaceutical companies in selected territories effective from July 2011. Yeah? So basically they made a deal. They said like, yeah, okay, you can use it in those countries and we do it in those countries. But it's the same product effectively. Yeah? That is kind of cashing out on their joint venture that they had. Yeah? And then I have a long list of countries. So they kind of divided it into Europe and North America, Middle East, Africa, Belarus, Ukraine, Central Asia, and the Caucasus versus Latin America and Caribbean island, Asia Pacific. As you would. So this is like basically you have a globe and you both come with a pencil, and then draw bubbles. That yeah. No, it's not that simple. Normally you look at market sizes. I hope that makes sense. So what does that mean? Well, the retained territories represent approximately 70% of Merck's 2010 revenue of approximately 2.8 billion from that product, while the relinquished territories that basically J&J got represent approximately 30%. However, all profits derived from Merck's exclusive distribution of the two products in the retained territories will be equally divided between Merck and Johnson & Johnson beginning from July 2011. So JJ also received a one-time payment of 500 million in April 2011 to basically settle this. So it's big amounts, hence it makes sense to basically be persistent in that. Yeah. Now, pharmaceutical pitfalls. There's no proof that giant mergers between large pharmaceutical companies make it more likely that the combined organization will discover more drugs. Pfizer is supposedly a merger expert. Pfizer, Warner Lambert, and Pharmacia, and Upjohn, and Cyril. And it managed to run into trouble in spite of years of experience in meshing cultures and companies together. And Merck had to cut about 15,000 jobs and find 3.5 billion in annual cost saving, and still have its worried staff fill up its drug pipelines. So the arbitration by J&J really kind of backfired, and they are not that innovative anymore. Yeah. So the reasons for distributing the rights with JJ not working. The expected synergies from the merger of Merck and Sharing Pew will not be realized, or at least not within the expected time period. So this is again the speculation of kind of the hidden credit that is up front. Yeah? The impact of pharmaceutical industry regulation and healthcare legislation shifted as well, had a knock-on effect. And the risk that the business will not be integrated successfully was another big one. Yeah? You had as well other channels. So here we had the distribution of the merger, making it more difficult to maintain business and operational relationships. You can imagine that if you don't really know, if you keep working together, you may not want to share all the data of your laboratory. You think as well, like, they are asking me all the stuff, I don't get anything from them. Why would I share this? Yeah? And it's often on top of your work on the operational side. Yeah? So there are certain dynamics where you have to basically look out for, especially if you are trying to make it work. Then you have the ability to accurately predict future market conditions, another big problem. Then dependence on effectiveness of patents and other protections for innovative products. So I mentioned already that Procter & Gamble, I had that guest talk here, and we make it after Easter again, and probably in this model now, module 2. Otherwise, I normally use him as well in the construction side of this program. But I think he would be a great host. And he always concludes with a sentence. We keep it secret. We don't even write it in a patent. We know that nobody else came up with that. So this is very bad. It's not good practice. We want to share. Imagine, who invented the light bulb? Imagine he would have kept it a secret. We would have still candles. I have as well still candles, but that is a different story. The idea is sharing can as well enhance. Now, then the further reasons were as well for the distribution rights not working was technological advances and patents attained by competitors. So there were a lot of products that were even more refined and kind of could even do the same service for patients. And the risk of new and changing regulation and health policies in the US and internationally, and the exposure to litigation and or regulatory actions really kind of grabbed them. You had as well general industry conditions and competition that kind of really reframed it. Now an interesting one in pharmacy was that they started as well to look at different regions. What kind of life environment there is. Is there a market for pharmacy products? Do the local populations use it? And that really kind of refactored it as well. So here economic factors with scale were quite a big one. Others were interest rate, currency exchange, and rate fluctuations. So I told you 2 weeks ago the euro is still going down because we are printing a lot of euro at the moment. So if you did this well, and you bought like a little bit debt in Germany and resell it, you will make a huge profit. Or otherwise, other way around. If the euro goes further down, you can purchase all the products from the Germans, wait till the euro gets strong again, and then sell. Then you have the currency gain. If it's a cool product, of course, and not that there's a new prototype, then you're in trouble, and you have all the old products still flying around. Okay, but you get the idea. Challenges inherent in new product development included obtaining regulatory approvals, domestic and foreign healthcare reforms and governmental laws, regulations, and last but not least as well the trends towards healthcare costing. So this is quite interesting. The NHS, they have as well started costing things up, but this is not necessarily needed. If you have a national health service, if you look at a lot of companies, you just look at resource redistribution. You know how much the people have to earn to have a healthy living. So here it depends a little bit how tough you want to be with your employees. If you're generous, you want them to have their own house and like a good health insurance themselves. So then you price it in. But internally, the people are then there to not make a profit. So you reinvest, of course, the whole capacity. But in the last 20 years, they have started costing it very tightly up. So they have a price model, which means as well that we have a recent policy, if that goes through, and we have trade agreements with America, then we are depoliticizing a lot of those services. And that is interesting. That means healthcare costs become then quite interesting, because then there's a competitive market. Then you have to price everything. Then we had as well DNA to mergers and acquisitions. This is a fabulous one. So this comes actually from Lich's book. Organizations develop over time. The evolutionary path of the organization defines their characteristics. So this is historical events. If you had a lot of mergers, you may get very skeptical. Or maybe not, maybe you like it. Each organization carries its own corporate DNA with its own unique genetic code. mergers and acquisitions require a decoding of an organization's DNA, mapping its genes, and perform some genetic engineering. Now, I don't really like this metaphor as it is. I would rather think of it a little bit like so how can I say that nicely? It's a little bit more like a puzzle. Yeah? You can break a puzzle and rebuild it, and you can as well reshape it. I think it's a healthier metaphor, because you have people that have certain skills, then you have like organizational competencies, so it's a team working together, operational. If you think of it like that, particularly in the operational sense, that is a lot more healthy. The DNA is a little bit rich and abstract. Yeah, it's something that we cannot see necessarily. Yeah, so okay. Now the attraction of merger and acquisitions, lower cost structure increases economics of scale and reduce duplication of resources. So this is very important to keep in mind in the simulation, because it's based on that literature. Increased product differentiation, product bundling and cross-selling is a great opportunity. And then as well replicating a business model in new market segments within its industry to increase profitability. So other benefits are reduced industry rivalry, eliminate excess capacity in industry. So the extreme is to become a monopoly, desired probably by companies, not so desirable for markets or customers. Increased bargaining power is another one over suppliers or buyers to increase their profitability and the expense of suppliers or buyers. I have here a deal flow, but that makes sense to actually look at. So just to give you an idea, it's kind of formulate the strategy. This is our linear model. You remember the one where we kind of the plan strategy. So strategy and integration process development. Then you locate it, pre-deal, assessing, planning, and forecasting the value, where your value is generated. Do you want to do it just via cost cutting? So this means like firing duplication, or do you think of capacity enlargement, which may be more expensive at the beginning, but may generate greater returns, because you have the additional capacity. Simple market assessments can do that. And then you want to investigate, negotiate. Here it's negotiate is of course deal, agreeing on value. And in some countries it is you have as well unions involved. So you want to make packages. If you have to lay off people, maybe line them up to competitors, or there are networks that where recruitment may be done in deals. The competitors will look as well. In a merger, there's always the opportunity to do a new product and maybe try the products that were potentially out advanced from the competitor, because they're often not so well on their toes. So sometimes this helps to take a few new staff from that company on. That they're set as well, and it basically bridges that nobody has to go in unemployment. Then integrate, post-deal realization of the value, and then last but not least, it's a motivation, ongoing. So sustaining and building long-term value and interlinking as well the organization that it's functional. Now this is why I said it's a little bit like a puzzle, so you have to break it and realign and make sure that people have routines that work for them. If they don't, then try to compensate it with training, maybe even I prefer cultivation scenarios where you think as well of kind of surplus peering, so you have mentoring schemes, that you have feedback, more softer approaches, because it's natural for humans. It gives you confidence, and you can ask questions, and you can try things out, and you get feedback. They're very powerful. Now I've broken that as well down in key areas, so this is very interesting for your plan, but works through it. So it's kind of the key activities versus issues and risks. And normally then you have as well due diligence, so this is an independent investigation of the company and its own management team and its prospects for success by an investor before funding is provided. So here it's aspects of the company that are normally looked at like financial structure and performance. So normally, particularly before a merger, there's often a lot of fiddling going on. The high risks are future projects, they're not yet in the books, and so there's a lot. That is not the right way. I just gave a bad example, but that may happen by accident. I think. Maybe strategic misrepresentation is the term here. Yeah. Then you have as well product portfolio is normally another one, customer base, marketing, sales, distribution structure, and research and development, often very interesting. Yeah. Sometimes there are project mothballed that mergers, in my mind, actually happen for. I know a few. There were very famous ones from Siemens. Actually, there was a very recent one from Siemens. There was another one. There was what was a big promise for us to have in 2020? Products. Does anybody remember? In 2000, what did we think we would have? White products. Do you remember? In 2000, there were those visions how we would live. How were we supposed to live?
Was it, I don't know, cars in the sky or something like that? Was it that sort of thing?
Yeah, it goes in the right direction probably. So what was that?
I don't know, it was like multi-level roads and things to...
Yes. You're actually spot on.
Climb into buildings at different heights.
Yes. So there was a smarter infrastructure and buildings that would kind of not be a building anymore, but a city. You may remember this pyramid city, which is highly efficient with trees on different level and kind of an organic structure. Yeah? So you would live in certain areas, you would drive in at the bottom. Now Siemens, do you know what Siemens has acquired? British company.
Siemens?
Siemens, yeah. Siemens? Like?
Oh, Siemens?
Yeah.
Everything.
Oh. Okay.
Electronics,
Maybe homework, yeah. Okay, to give you a few clues, it has as well to do with energy, and interlinking basically energy with those wonderful buildings. Yeah. The first hybrid building that will be built is in Copenhagen. They built that actually, pretty much from now onwards. Yeah. And it has to do with power station. They want to have like kind of local power stations, so the whole city unit is actually kind of independent.
Cool.
That is a good question. If you Google pyramid building Copenhagen, you will find it. Yeah, it's a design prize that was recently bidded out. But no, okay, I would have to lie. I can write a one-liner on the ELP, so then you can see the link as well. Yeah. Okay, so R&D can be a big motivating factor as well in due diligence. Sometimes management and personnel, and of course as well legal matters, liabilities, contracts, and setups. Yeah. Successful acquisitions normally require, well, they're all kind of types. They have kind of a typology for this. So you have friendly acquisition, acceptance of takeover, smoother and less costly, then complementary assets rather than competing assets, greater synergy, then careful checks in advance of acquisition, due diligence, no surprises, sufficient access to low-cost finance. Does the acquired company have high financial debts or are funded by a high-cost debt vehicle, not bitten off more than they can chew? Yeah, so this was a little bit what I was referring to earlier on. Yeah? So sometimes you may want to sell some debts that you have from the past, maybe at a loss. Yeah, so you thought it would probably repay in 3 years, but with a new merger you really wanted, then you may sell it at 50%. So you have a lot of people being interested in that. Yeah. Or well, it's basically at what point do people want to buy your credit? That's the question. Yeah. Then you have as well conservative benefit assessment, not to be unduly optimistic about the cost savings to be achieved or the sales to be gained. So a more true picture, but again, this is very difficult. And then past successful record on acquisition, experience in how to gain full benefits or realize true value, greater likelihood of success. Now, there is often as well an association with like setting a very straight line that people can orient themselves, but in reality, there are many ways of doing it. Yeah. Another important one that is very prominent more recently and has actually led to more success is a cultural due diligence. So here, for managing the cultural issues, And here we had that already in the culture session. Here you look at organizational culture, industry culture, we had as well national and regional culture, leadership style, corporate values, and knowledge behavior. Now, do they share? Are they very protective? Are they segmented? Things like that. And that is often where the crux lies of success or failure, as we discussed two sessions earlier. Yeah. I hope you still have that a little bit in mind. Yeah. Do cultural differences matter? Well, cultural differences can create a major obstacle to achieving integration of benefits, and differences in culture can mean as well between merging firms you can have a source of value creation and learning if the culture works. Yeah? If it doesn't work, then you may have the opposite. It becomes kind of not to say tribal, but it becomes kind of fighting for who has the right culture. Then you create a very toxic dynamic. And it means that you alienate basically part of the group. The outcome of cooperative process whereby the benefits. Then we have as well the accumulation in acquisitions. So here you have the outcome of the cooperative process whereby the benefits and assumptions and values of two previous independent workforces form a jointly determined culture. Now this can work better or less better depending on where you cut it. So I give you the example of the kind of acquisition that I managed in a very short duration over maybe 3 to 6 months. So it was all agreed in 3 months, but we came in with a lot of what people perceived as benefits. So before they had time contracts, shifts. Here you worked 3 months on a shift to produce like quantities. Then when you were good, you would get a new contract. Now when we came in, we said like, hey, become an employee, and we pay your retirement, and you have insurance, health insurance, and I told you the example with a dentist before. Dental care was not included in South Africa, and actually that was Namibia, but okay, never mind. So we integrated that, and then it's of course perceived very positive from the workforce. They're like, this is great, yeah. I think we had very little resistance to that, and they really identified with our brand as well. So it can work, but if you are coming, of course, from the cost-cutting perspective, and you say, hey, no more dental care, start saving for your own dental care, then this may not be so easy. People may be very well, you get the idea. So there's as well a leveling here. I suppose there's a little bit more to this, and there as well kind of divides of that, but this is actually quite old literature. It's still very significant, but what I wanted to capture before I kind of stop was as well the cultural clashes. So if you have cultural clashes, it's often about rebuilding trust as well. So if you have that, you have lower commitment and cooperation among acquired employees. They suddenly don't respond to emails anymore, they don't communicate, they may not even do their role anymore, which is quite terrifying if you are working kind of in a company setting where you rely on each other. Then a greater turnover among acquired managers. So it's very likely as well, depending on how you actually manage it, that managers say like, okay, this doesn't work for me, it's maybe too soft, it's maybe too hard, who knows. A decline in shareholder value at the buying firm is often as well the case. Then a deterioration in operating performance at the acquired firm. And with this comes as well the ability to integrate organizational cultures. Achieve acculturation is more important to merger success than financial or strategic factors. And if you ask anybody that has managed a merger, it's really key element. So especially if you kind of break the puzzle and reassemble, give people as well to make their own decisions how they see themselves. If you have facilitation workshops, this is extremely powerful. Okay, how to overcome it? Well, involve the affected employees, such as socialization activities, as introduction programs, training, cross visits, joining retreats, celebrations, and other such socialization rituals. They are likely to create joint organizational culture and on their own volition as long as they are allowed to autonomy. So again, kind of show them what the new future looks like, leave enough spaces that everybody fits, and people will normally have as well preference. Some people may be more ambitious, they want to work somewhere else. This may create additional capacity. But it's a little bit like a puzzle, and it requires patience or facilitation. If you don't want to do it yourself, get a consultant, and there are a lot of good consultants as well. But I recommend do it yourself. As a project manager, you are more than capable. Then you have as well, there's the other side of mergers and acquisitions. It's a failure. So majority of acquisitions do not create value, and many actually reduce value. So we have 700 large acquisitions in the last, wait a minute, when was the time period? So last 4 years, I looked from 2012 backwards, and 30% increased profitability, 31 reduced profitability, and 39 did not have any impact at all. So it's a deeming business. And we had a lot of it already. So it's again, the expectations are unrealistic, hostile constructed strategy, poor planning, unskilled execution, then failure, inability to unify, talent is lost or mismanaged, people run away when they see the new aims, and so make sure you have a good idea, ask the people what the culture is. Power and politics are in driving, are as well driving forces that of course alienate, and you may have as well defensive motivation. There are a lot of more: financial drain, transition management fails, but this is just a few to get you started about it. Now, if you look at the successful side, and that is what you want to focus on for the simulation, you want leadership, lead the change, set clear guidelines, show that there's space for negotiation, that if favorable. Then well thought out goals and objectives, define them clear, that people have an orientation. In uncertainty, certainty is a nice thing to have, and stick to the aims that are reliable. Be more on the tight side and then give in to the generous side. Not the other way around. Very generous and then halfway through, by the way, it was just a joke here, half is the real thing. As you kind of underline it, undermine basically the cooperation. Then as well, due diligence on hard and soft issues. Again, don't forget the culture, often underrated, but kind of a miss or a success indicator. Have a designated M&A team, well managed, that they communicate as well to everybody. That is required, and successful learning from previous experience if you have. If not, study. What were the indicators? Planning for combination and solidification steps completed early. Key talent retained. Spot who you want to keep on board, who works well with you, who is already kind of very averse. Maybe there's a reason why they're averse. Can this be solved? Can they become more collaborative? This is a thing you want to consider. And then extensive and timely communications to our stakeholders is very important. Worst thing you can do is make decisions, and then it comes out in the newspaper. Nobody else knows it before that. So don't use a journalist to kind of inform everybody. Make sure you create that relationship, that you talk with your nearest stakeholders first before you actually kind of give it to other channels that may communicate it sideways.
Is that
to
based on experience, or do you set rules with when you communicate with the stakeholders?
Oh, I see. So there are different ways to do, but this is research-based. So this is what worked in the past. So we had it this way, the other way around. Big mergers kind of always falling through leakage into the newspapers. It destroys everything: trust, accountability. You feel undermined. Why are you not informed as a manager or as an employee? Why do you not know what's going on? And the newspaper knows it actually, makes already cynical comments. So the newspaper tells you 5,000 people will lose their job. And you're like, no. And then, oh yeah, by the way, we are firing 5,000 people. Yeah, it's like, oh wow, okay, I can really not trust my
But
company.
you've got to be careful because you've got to have the opportunity to have a good plan in place before you tell anybody anything.
Yeah, this
It's
is
really
kind of the
hard
point.
to gauge it, isn't it?
Yeah, so sorry, this is you're spot on. Yeah, so planning for a combination of solidification steps completed early before you communicate. You know, have a thorough plan that is on the tight side, and then aim at negotiating at a healthy level. Yeah. Especially if you work with unions or team representatives.
As soon as two parties get together, that's when the rumours start immediately. There doesn't have to be anything there. You just have to say, oh, why is our chief exec meeting with that chief exec? And, you know, it just goes down the jungle lines, isn't it?
Yeah, but this
People
is okay. But this is within the organization. It's bad if then the newspaper already runs it on the title page and the meeting is in 1 week. Is the meeting about, like, you know, reduction of this and this, then you undermine any trust in negotiation base. Okay, sorry for the screen. I will lock it now with 4242, but